You're ready? All right. Next we have Jenny Jen.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny, and I'm going to be speaking to you about the Chinese influence in Boston. So I grew up between two cultures. So at home, I speak Mandarin and a dialect of Taiwanese, and I eat Chinese food. I occasionally will watch Chinese television and listen to Chinese music with my parents. And then when I'm at school, it's the complete opposite. I speak English, I eat American food, I listen to American music, and I watch American television. And growing up, I was very insecure about who I was and my culture because I looked nothing like my friends. I had this name that no one seemed to be able to pronounce correctly. And when I was a lot younger, my mom would pack me like dumplings or fried rice or some type of Chinese dish that resembled nothing of what my friends brought to school. And for a very long time, I just wanted to assimilate into one of the two groups and not stand out. And I didn't like that I stood out so much in front of everyone. And so this past summer, I went to China with a few governor's school students. And I've been to China a lot in the past years, but this trip was especially meaningful and special to me. And it's because this summer, a lot of people that went on the trip was translating and conversing with the locals. And one night, I remember we were taking a trip to Tiananmen Square, and we ended up riding a bus there. And I was able to use my skills and being able to speak fluently to locals. I was able to talk to them and get us to the destination. And in that moment, I realized, like, wow, I'm able to speak two languages. How cool is that? And I realized, like, this is not something that I should be ashamed of. It shouldn't be something that I'm embarrassed about. I should be proud of who I am, this culture that I have at home and also at school. And so I knew right away that this was something that I wanted to incorporate into my senior presentation. I wanted to make sure that I related who I was into my senior project. So I came up with this question. How have Chinese cultures and traditions significantly impacted both Eastern and Western societies today? Now, one of the most obvious and most significant impacts that Chinese cultures have had on our society is through food, such as this, General Tso's chicken. So the first Chinese restaurant that was opened in the United States was opened in 1849 in San Francisco, California. Currently, there are about 41,000 Chinese restaurants open today, and the number is just growing. But when the Chinese immigrants first moved to the United States, they when they first moved to the United States, one of the few business opportunities was through the restaurant business. That was one of the few economic opportunities for the Chinese immigrants. And then during the 1800s to about 1943, during the Chinese exclusion period, a lot of Chinese workers were forced out of their skilled occupations and forced to work in very menial work jobs, low low wages, out long hours, and very hard labor. And they started to work in the restaurant business again. And working in this restaurant business, they soon realized how successful it became. And as more Americans started to accept Chinese food, more restaurants opened, and it became more and more successful. And they started to invent a lot of dishes that accommodated to American diet and to Americans in general. And one of them being General Tso's chicken. Chow mein is also something that is not really seen a lot in China. It's something that has been invented by immigrants to accommodate to Americans, and same with egg foo young. Also, the fortune cookie. Fortune cookie was something that is not seen in China. It was actually originated from Japan, and they immigrated. Japanese immigrants brought it to America, and somehow it got linked to Chinese restaurants today. So for my internship, they had it at Shea House, which is at the University of Virginia. So as it says on the sign, Shea House is a language community, and each floor is a different language. So it's a residential college place that people live. I think it's open to second, third, and fourth years, and people can apply and live in one of the language floors. And each week they have meetings and they communicate in that language, and it helps them to really understand the language and improve their speaking skills. My internship was through Chinese Corner at UVA, which was just held at Shea House. It had nothing to really do with Shea House. And at Chinese Corner. It was an organization that allowed for native speakers and also beginners and any students that were interested in learning Chinese. It gave them an opportunity to practice their speaking skills and really get to talk with others about the culture and the language itself. And when I was there, I was able to communicate with a lot of the beginner students. And what's interesting is when they're learning Chinese, they learn both the character and the word that's associated, and they learn it together. So they learn how to say it and they learn how to write it. Write Chinese, I can only speak it fluently. And so I was able to help them read. I was able to help them enunciate better, but at the same time, they helped me recognize a lot more characters. And the second picture was from one of the meetings that I attended, and one of the girls, so this girl right here, she has been learning calligraphy since 4th grade. And so she went and demonstrated calligraphy to a group of us at the meeting, and afterwards she let me practice. And I just wrote my name because that's all I know how to write, but it wasn't very good, but it was definitely an experience I really enjoyed. My mentor was Professor Chen at the University of Virginia. She is a lecturer of Chinese. Originally, she wanted me to go and attend some of her lectures, but our schedules didn't really match up, and so she suggested that I do Chinese Corner instead. And Professor Wang is also a lecturer of Chinese at UVA, and she was there at all the meetings to help the students. Community service by planning a lesson and presenting my lesson to a class, a 3rd grade class. So I went to Ms. Ward's class last Thursday, and I went and taught the kids some Chinese, and it was really fun because I got to see how excited the kids were. I was originally kind of nervous because I didn't know how they would enjoy the class. I thought maybe they weren't going to be that interested, but I went in and I asked them if they had any prior knowledge about China, and it was really funny to hear just some of the comments that they made about China and what they knew. And then afterwards, I asked them what their favorite color was. So a few days prior, I had made posters of all of the Chinese characters, all the colors, and in that Chinese characters. So when I went in that day, I asked them what colors they liked, and I would show them that respective color in Chinese and teach them to say it, and they would respond back by saying the Chinese word. And it was really interesting to see how well they actually said it. I kind of thought that they would say it with a very strong accent, but they didn't, and it was really cool to hear them say it back to me. And then afterwards, we did an activity where we made a name tag. So I taught them how to write "my name is" in Chinese characters, and then they wrote their English name next to it, and the kids really seemed to enjoy it. And what I liked most about this community service was right afterwards, before I was about to leave, one of the students came up to me and she asked me, she was like, could you come back and teach us again once you learn more Chinese? And I just really thought that I made a difference somehow, and I helped them learn something and they enjoyed it. Because that was something that I was worried about. I didn't know how well they would perceive it. What I've learned through the senior internship and this community service that I probably should have given myself more time than I thought I needed. For instance, when I made the posters, I thought it was going to take me half an hour, and I didn't even remember. I didn't really counter in the time that I needed to print everything out, and I thought that it would take about half an hour to do, but it ended up taking a lot longer because I had technical difficulties, and everything took longer than I thought it would. So if I could go back and do it again, I would give myself a lot more time. And for rising seniors, the biggest piece of advice I can give you, other than to not procrastinate, is to be flexible. Not everything is going to go exactly the way you plan it to be, but as long as you work with what you have and be flexible, everything will work out fine. So plans for the future, I will be attending the University of Virginia next year. I'm undecided on my major, but I do want to continue and learn Chinese. I hope that by taking a Chinese course or courses, I'll be able to read and write Chinese. And my goal is to be able to write a letter to my grandma in Chinese. I think it would be really nice to be able to just write her something and have her be able to read it. But that's my goal, and I'm really excited for next year. Questions?
I didn't get past saying influences on society, fast food,
So
what were the others that you
also education. So Chinese education is very strict, and they put a lot of emphasis on Chinese education. Well, education on Chinese students, and so I wrote about that in my paper. How immigrant parents have kind of brought that mindset and that parental like supervision of students during their years in high school and in their years of schooling. I kind of talked about that in my paper as well. I don't know if that answered your question.
Okay.
Jenny, have there been any opportunities for you to take Chinese language classes while you've been in high school?
No. So originally I was going to take like maybe an AP Chinese class my senior year, but my schedule was just too full. But I was at Days on the Lawn, which is an open house type of thing for admitted students for UVA, and I was there on the 20th of March, and I attended one of the classes, and I was going to take an intermediate Chinese class while I was there, but somehow I accidentally walked into the wrong class, and so I was in a beginner's class, and so I knew everything that they were doing, but afterwards I talked to the professor, and she recommended that I take this, it's this accelerated Chinese class, specifically geared towards students like me who are fluent and can speak Mandarin but are unable to read and write. And so she said it's very accelerated, but it's going to be good because I can just I can focus on just one aspect instead of learning how to speak it as well.
Did you do any research on, what I heard you describing was your experience of sort of an ambivalence about your Chinese heritage and learning to come to appreciate that and value it. Did you do any research on sort of the general experience of second generation immigrants and how they deal with that ambivalence as they
Not really.
assimilate into American culture and yet still hold on to?
Not really. That's probably not the answer you were looking for, but no, I knew that. I'm assuming they do as well, but I think for me, partially the reason why I was so like I was trying to assimilate so much is because like the diversity is so low here, so I naturally just felt like I stuck out so much.